Hello, folks. My name is Andrew Gilmore, and this is my podcast, mostly movies, maybe music. And I should introduce myself. I'm a film historian from Philadelphia, specializing in anywhere pretty much from the silent era through about World War II, maybe a little later than that. And my guest today is someone who shares that interest, and that's why she's here. Her name is Samantha Glasser, and she's the founder of the Columbus Moving Picture Show Film Festival in Columbus, Ohio, and has been a Facebook friend for a while. And we see each other about once a year at the Capitol Fest Film Festival in upstate New York. But our conversations there tend to be kind of short because we just kind of see each other and catch up briefly between movies, and that's kind of how that goes. So I thought it would be a good idea to have her on here so we can have a more substantial conversation and I can learn more about her interest in old movies and how that all started for her. So here she is. So, Samantha, thank you for being on the show. It's good to have you here.
For having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, let's just start at the beginning. Did you watch a lot of movies when you were a kid? Was that just something that always interested you?
Oh yeah, we watched a lot of movies. We didn't have cable growing up, so we watched a lot of movies that we rented from the library.
Hmm.
VH were constantly in our house, and that's kind of how I got into older movies as well. Was the Cabin Fever tapes that came out in the '90s of all the
Yeah.
little our gang comedy shorts. My dad picked one up for us and really encouraged us to watch that. And my sister and I loved it. So we would go every time to our local branch and see if they had any of the new ones. We only saw not the complete set. I think there were 21 tapes. We maybe saw 8 or 9 of them. So when I learned that you could reserve things from other branches, that's how I finally got to see the complete thing. And then I ended up buying them. I still have them.
Oh, great. Do you have a favorite Our Gang short?
There's so many. There's so many good ones. I quote them all the time. The first one I remember seeing was, I believe, School's Out.
Yeah.
Was like a PD tape that my parents had picked up at the dollar store and got me as a joke gift for one of my birthdays, because my mom used to call my sister and I alfalfa et if we had a bad hair day, and she wanted to get the reference, so she got that. And he's not even in that short. That's the funny thing about it.
Oh, that's right.
But the first one I remember seeing from the library was Bouncing Babies, and to this day, Weezer is one of my absolute favorites. But I remember loving the whole concept of him dragging the baby carriage or the crib through the streets back to the hospital to return the baby in exchange for a goat. That's great.
Yeah. And I watched some of your other interviews that you've done, and you said that your dad also got you into the Three Stooges early on as well.
Yeah, yeah. They used to show on TV, and so boomer generation always tells me about the good old days of TV when they would come home from school and they could watch Our Gang and Laurel and Hardy and the Three Stooges. We didn't have that. It was a desert as far as black and white was concerned. Maybe if you had Nick at Night or something like that, but we didn't have cable, so we didn't have that. But when I was probably like 10-ish, maybe somewhere on that cusp between elementary and middle school, they did something called Stoogerama on Channel 54 and just did like a marathon of Three Stooges shorts. So we watched those with my dad and loved them. And so we recorded some of them, not the entire run that they did, but we had those on tape. So then could revisit them and rewatch them again and again.
Yeah. Oh, any favorite Stooges shorts then?
Okay, so the one I like to show my kids, they seem to latch onto was Dopey Dicks,
Yeah.
where kind of like a haunted house thriller comedy thing. Um, there's so many good ones. I mean, I love Curly, but I do appreciate Shemp as well. So I'll really watch any of them. But so we had a Commodore 64 growing up, and there was a Three Stooges game on there. And so the shorts that they used as games in that game always have a special place in my heart. So they have one of the early ones, and now I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's the one where Larry has to get the violin so he can play Pop Goes the Weasel for Curly in the boxing ring,
Oh,
because that's
that's Punch Drunks.
Punch Drunks, yes. So that one is they have one, it's the Men in White,
Men
or
in Black.
yeah, the Men in
Yeah.
White spoof.
Right.
where they're in the hospital going down the corridors and knocking down patients.
Yeah.
And it's a great game. It was such a fun game.
Yeah, I wasn't into video games very much when I was a kid, but that's cool that you had that. So, what was the progression from that to watching features and learning about old features?
Well, so we watched some features when I was a kid. I remember having an old tape, it was recorded off TV, of the Ten Commandments. And for whatever reason, I was sort of enamored with that for a while. So I used to watch that on my own. I didn't realize that it was old, though. That's the thing about some of these movies, especially the color ones. They could kind of sneak in under the radar and you wouldn't realize how old they were. So it was
Right.
like acceptable for a young kid. So, I mean, Wizard of Oz was always on. We watched that a lot as kids. But my parents loved at Christmas time It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
One of the few things that they actually agreed on when I was growing up because they did not have the same taste in movies. And then we used to watch the Alistair Sim A Christmas Carol, which kind of scared me as a kid, and I didn't really like it all that much. But as an adult, I learned to appreciate it.
Yeah.
But then,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
I I on my own sort of took an interest in. So okay, so here's what happened. I'm a very obsessive person when I love something,
Yeah,
and
me
I
too.
dive down the rabbit hole. I know you can relate to this, yeah.
Yes.
And so I was obsessed with this TV show that was very much marketed towards like my generation. It was in the same era as Dawson's Creek and Buffy and Felicity and those kinds of shows. It was called Roswell, and it was a teen drama, but it was sci-fi as well, and I loved it. Well, it was one of those shows that constantly was threatened to be canceled. So they rescued it 3 times, but it was one of those things where once that show was over, I didn't know what to do with myself. I kind of felt like, I have all this energy and this passion, but like, what's the thing I'm gonna invest it in? So I started to become really curious about these Our Gang shorts that I always loved as a kid, and wanting to know, like, are any of these people still alive? Did they have careers outside of these? What other things could I possibly dig up about them? But I also was sort of hesitant about it because I knew if I dive into this, I'm going to dive deep into this, and I
Right.
need to sort of prepared for that. So, I mean, I gave in eventually, and started watching. I started watching Dickie Moore movies. I love Dickie Moore and Our Gang. When I was little, he reminded me of somebody that I knew, so I think I sort of latched onto him for that reason. But then, and now as an adult, I'm like, that kid is the cutest kid I've ever seen in my life. You saw him at Capitol Fest. What was your reaction seeing him in Seed?
Oh, was he in Seed? I don't remember that.
Oh my gosh, he was so cute, and he's the best part of Seed.
Okay.
Obviously, we had different reactions to him.
I remember he was in Disorderly Conduct, that Spencer Tracy movie that they showed.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, he
That
was.
wanted to so long, and I was so excited to get to see that finally. I had a lobby card from that movie. I still have it, and I called it the Dead Dickie Moore lobby card because at the time when I bought it, he was still living.
Yeah.
And it's a picture of Dickie Moore lying in the street in his little policeman's uniform with a huge crowd surrounding him looking down. And he's just like zonked out in the middle of the street. And so, because of that image, I wanted to see that film, but it really was not available. So, when Capitol Fest booked it, I was so excited to finally get to see that movie.
Yeah. I have to stop there just to tell you that I'm noticing that if we talk at the same time, then it cuts you off and I'm not getting everything you're saying. So that means I have to wait for you to stop talking before I say something. So that's why I'm mostly nodding and just listening to you.
Okay,
Just a
okay.
technical thing there because otherwise I won't be able to hear you. But anyway, yeah, I gather Dickie Moore is your favorite of the gang, and Stymie's my favorite. But anyway,
Oh, I love Stymie
yeah,
too.
yeah. I don't remember who it was, but somebody on Facebook said they knew him later in life, and they were just talking about what a nice guy he was as an adult.
Oh, that's good to hear. I know he didn't have a super happy life.
Yeah, unfortunately. But just getting back to your story, what was the progression for you from seeing The Wizard of Oz and kind of basic things like that into digging deeper and finding some of the more obscure films?
Okay, so Dickie Moore was one of them because I'm a very art oriented person. So I would find a movie like I saw Blonde Venus, for example,
Yeah.
with but also in that movie, starring in that movie is Marlene Dietrich, who I love to this day. I took German in college because
Oh,
I love Marlene Dietrich. And Cary Grant's in that movie and Herbert Marshall. So when I would find another star in these movies that I liked, then I would go, okay, what can I see that they're in? So then I started watching every Marlene Dietrich movie that I could get my hands on. And with Dickie Moore as well, he's in Sergeant York with Gary Cooper. So let's see all the Gary Cooper movies that we can find. So it just kind of branched out and branched out and branched out. A movie that I really wanted to see with Dickie Moore was The Bride Wore Red with Joan Crawford and Franchot Tone. But the library didn't have that on tape. So I said, well, then I'll just watch a different Joan Crawford movie. So my first Joan Crawford experience was Grand Hotel, which is a great movie. It's a great showcase for her, but it's also a star studded movie. So I really was able to follow a lot of careers through that movie. But I got into silence because of Our Gang. I started watching anything Our Gang I could get my hands on. And so I found Mary Queen of Tots, which is a silent, it's very creative. It's Mary Kornman and like I would say, is it 25? I think 1925.
something like that.
So it's Farina and Joe and all the kids. They are dolls. It's kind of a poor little rich girl story, and the kids are dolls that come to life in her house. So they have this oversized furniture playing in and stuff. It's very creative and strange and sort of surreal. I said, "Wow, this is a cool movie, and it's a silent. Maybe other silents are like this." So
So,
I said,
I was going to just interject and say you must be really excited about the classic flicks disc coming out.
oh yeah, I got it yesterday in the mail. I haven't cracked it open yet, but yeah, I'm so oh I was telling my husband, I said, I think I've been waiting for the Silent Air Gangs to be restored and released on disc since as long as I've known him, like almost 20 years. It's crazy. They were supposed to release them from Laugh-Smith way back when, and then they went out of business, I think, and it never happened. So I've been, wishing and hoping and praying that someone would do it, and it's finally happening. It's so exciting.
Yay. Anyway, where were you with getting into the more obscure films? I cut you off there.
Oh, so silent movies. So with the silent our gangs, I said, well, maybe I should try a feature. Maybe I should see what this is all about. And my aunt had given me this book. I don't even remember when I cracked it open, why I cracked it open. She had given me a book for my birthday that I had never read, probably middle school era. And it was called Girls Who Rocked the World, Part Two. And it was just like little biographies about important women through history or whatever, people that were supposed to be like role models for girls. And one of them was Mary Pickford. So I read this biography and I was like, oh, she sounds great. Maybe I'll watch one of her movies. So I just looked on the library catalog and saw what they had. And they had this movie called Daddy Longlegs.
Yes.
Terrified of Daddy Longlegs spiders. Maybe not so much now as an adult, but at the time, oh, heck no, I didn't want anything to do with them. But it intrigued me that there would be a movie called that. So I looked it up and found out it was not about spiders at all. It was about orphans. And so I rented it. And so that was my first silent feature was Daddy Longlegs 1919. And I just loved Mary and I started watching anything everything I could get my hands on with her as well.
Yeah, I'm very much the same way because, which I guess you kind of know for example, it was really Thelma Todd got me into a lot of things because I started watching a lot of her stuff, and that's what led me into Wheeler and Woolsey, and then I got into more obscure comedies from that, and that was really the gateway into seeing, oh, there are other movies out there besides Casablanca and the basic movies that everybody knows. There's this whole other world out there, and I started exploring that, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here talking to you. So there you are.
How old were you when you discovered her?
Well, I always liked older movies. I mean, I saw the Marx Brothers when I was little and things like that, but I didn't really branch out into the more obscure stuff until, I was, yeah, mid-20s, I guess, early 20s, something like that, when I started teaching, and then I was looking for movies to show in my classes and branched out from there.
Okay, so when you started teaching, were you teaching modern film?
No, I actually started out teaching cartoons because I'm a big Warner Brothers cartoon geek, and I did classes on cartoons and various short films. I did the Stooges, things like that, and then I kind of I was thinking about this the other day that I was looking for an excuse to show Wheeler and Woolsey in a class, and I did a class on political comedies of the 1930s. So I showed Duck Soup and Million Dollar Legs, and Cracked Nuts and Diplomaniacs were the two Wheeler and Woolsey movies that I snuck in there with the other stuff. So that was the first class I did where I was showing features, and then I just kept showing features from there.
Okay. Are you going to the Thelma Todd convention in Massachusetts?
No, well, I can't travel, so I can't get to Massachusetts.
I was hoping maybe because it sounded up your area of interest. They're showing a Wheeler and Woolsey, and they're showing a Dickie Moore movie called Aloha.
Yeah, I would love to be there if I could, but I can't. I can't even get to the picture show, as you know. So it's I'm dependent on my dad's ability to travel, and he's getting up there in years, so we can't travel that much.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, someday I'll figure it out, but
Yeah.
whatever. So you can see I brought Clara Bow with me. Speaking of your interest in silent movies, when did you first see Clara?
Probably around that same time I saw it.
Yeah.
And I liked it, but I that's really not my favorite Clara Bow. And honestly, she's so I love Marilyn Monroe too,
Yeah.
and I heard a lot, and I think that it's valid in some ways. They were both really talented people who could carry crappy movies. So those studios said, "Why should we invest good money into good scripts and things for these people when they're going to sell anyway?" So they would put them in these dogs. I mean, have you ever seen Parisian Love?
No, I don't know that one.
It's not good. I've tried to watch it several times and it drags. And, she's a bright spot in it. And I really, one of my favorite Claire Bows is, now I'm going to blank on the name of that one. It's in a double feature disc with a Louise Brooks movie called The Show Off. It's called The Plastic Age.
Oh yes.
I love that movie. It's such a fun college light movie, and I think Donald Keith is adorable in that. So he's in Parisian Love, but it's unwatchable. It's so difficult to get through. So just because there's good people in it doesn't make a bad script good, but it definitely sold them. So the studio just kept giving her the bad scripts.
Yeah, I mentioned this on Facebook that I'm going through all of Joan Blondell's movies right now, and there's some are better than others, but I've never seen her never seen her give a bad performance.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
100%. Joan Blondell is great in everything.
Yep. I think I counted once. I think she did about 100 movies, and I think I've seen 82 of them or something like that. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm like you with the obsessive collecting of stuff. Once I like somebody, I'm in. So
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that.
What are your favorite Joan Blondells?
Oh, I love Blondie Johnson. I think that's one of her best.
I
Uh,
have,
have you seen that?
oh,
Sorry, I can't hear you.
no, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, that's a gangster movie. It's Warner Brothers, 1933, and it's one of the few times where she has the lead role. She's not just a sidekick or something. So, and Warner Archive has that out, so I would definitely recommend that. And of course, Footlight Parade. I mean, who doesn't love Footlight Parade and Gold Diggers of 33 and all that? Just off the top of my head, those would be like my top couple of favorites.
Yeah. Gold Diggers of 1933 is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's great. It never gets old.
Yeah, I've seen it. I'm trying to remember if I've seen it in a theater twice, but I think I only saw it once. But that was exciting.
Yeah, that's one up on me. I never saw it in the theater.
Hmm. Well, you've probably seen a lot of things in theaters that I haven't seen, so.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. Do you have a repertory theater near you that you can go see oldies in?
Yes, actually, one of the guests I'm hoping to have on here is the woman who's the programming director there. But she said she's not available for a couple of months, so hopefully that'll happen. But it's called the Ambler Theater. It's about half an hour from where I live, and mostly they show classic movies in the summer, but they kind of sprinkle other classics throughout the rest of the year. And yeah, I've been going there for 20 years. I've seen a lot of things there, and unfortunately, I think post-COVID, the audience has kind of dwindled. So I've seen some movies there with like 10 people and nobody laughs, and those are kind of depressing. But I've had a lot of really great experiences there too.
What have been some of your favorites?
Oh gosh, I'd have to kind of go through my index in my head of all those memories. But just recently, I saw I Married a Witch there. That was fun for Halloween. Uh, oh, I saw To Have and Have Not there a few years ago. That was great because the audience was really terrific with that. And, um, that's one of the things, really, because I guess I've been a performer, and so I'm very sensitive to audience reactions when I go to see these things. So the main thing that makes it a good experience is how good the audience is. And, I might see a movie that I like, but if the rest of the audience isn't with it, then it's not a pleasant experience, as you know from being at festivals and things. So that's the main memory for me is how happy was that experience in terms of audience reaction. And To Have and Have Not, they were really with it. So
Mhm.
that was really fun. And yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but I guess that answers your question.
See, I feel like I'm very sensitive to kids and how kids react to things. So I saw some Laurel and Hardy Silence, I believe it was Silence, at the Ohio Theater a few years ago. And there was a family with some kids there sitting near me, which I think some people would move seats. They wouldn't want to be near the kids because they would think, oh, they're going to be disruptive. But they were delightful to listen to because I don't know that I had seen all of those Laurel and Hardy shorts, but once you've gotten a feel for Hal Roach, you sort of get the style and know what to expect. And they're always fun. They're always great. I have such a sensitive, soft spot for Hal Roach. But these kids were having these great reactions and they were asking questions and they were laughing and they started imitating them. And that was such a great experience to be able to witness that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the only thing I have comparable to that is I've seen a couple of cartoon screenings where there were kids, but nothing like Laurel and Hardy or any features or anything like that, or two real shorts. But a couple of times I've seen cartoons with kids, and that's always enjoyable.
Yeah, I've tried to take my kids to see the vintage comedy or the cartoon shorts at the Ohio Theater, and my youngest is not a super patient kid, so if he gets bored, he gets restless. So typically when we go, we only watch the first half, but I try. You got to keep taking them. But that's also an environment I think where a lot of the audience is prepped for there to be a lot of kids, whereas maybe with a comedy or especially a feature, they might get a little bit more impatient with them talking through the feature or, being loud or kicking the seats or whatever. So I try to be sensitive to that before I take them somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because you've talked about showing old movies to your kids. What kind of reactions do you get from them?
It depends, and it like they really have to be in a mood for it. So if they're too tired or whatever, they're not going to respond well. I do show them probably comedies more than anything else, just because I think that that's probably more what they're going to latch onto. But I've been surprised. There was one night, it was late at night. I was watching a movie called Bright Road, which is Dorothy Dandridge and Harry Belafonte are school teachers, and it's a drama. It's not a terribly exciting movie, but Jonas snuck downstairs and he didn't want to go back to bed, and he said, "I just want to snuggle with you," and he sat up and watched the whole movie with me. So you never know what they're going to latch onto, but I think just having stuff playing and available to them, that's how you're going to catch them.
Yeah. So do they have favorites? Or are there things they're particularly drawn to?
They do like Laurel and Hardy. They like Our Gang. They like the Three Stooges. I'm trying to think of. Oh, so they love Annie Get Your Gun. They love the songs from that. So they don't necessarily sit through the whole movie, but they'll listen to the songs and they'll sing the songs. They actually know them.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I remember you saying Betty Hutton was another favorite of yours.
I love Betty Hutton. She's okay. So I did theater in high school. That was something that I thought I might want to do professionally was be an actress or a singer.
Really, I never knew that.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I didn't have the drive for it or the I like stability in my life.
Yeah.
Well, with instability and an actor's life is very unstable, especially in the beginning. So
Yeah,
that
I was an actor, but I didn't have much luck with it. But I did it for a while.
yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I think a lot of people who are drawn to the arts probably at some point in their life attempted to do it themselves. But Betty Hutton to me is just the most perfect performer because she has no fear. She is not afraid to ugly herself up for a comedy routine, but she has an amazing voice that can pretty much do anything. She can be sensitive and soft and break your heart, and then she can make you laugh and be manic and insane. So to me, she's just perfect. I love her.
Yeah, me too. And another example of somebody who made some movies that weren't so great, but she's always fun to watch.
Exactly. And some of her movies aren't so easy to find either. So I still haven't seen all of them.
Oh, I have all of them. I could probably send you some.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I'll let you know what I'm missing.
Yeah, happy to do that. I've sometimes I'll do that. I sent Peter McRae some of his parents' movies that he didn't have, things like that. So I'm always happy to help out.
Nice. Do you collect lobby cards?
No, I don't. That'd be really just be more stuff taking up room in my house at this point. So I have no desire to do that.
Yeah. Well, you got to pick and choose what you collect. Obviously, records are one of your big things.
Yep, there they are back there.
Yeah.
Uh,
So the lobby cards have become one of my bigger things that I collect. And so there are certain stars that I try to collect anything and everything that I can get my hands on. Dick Powell is one, Van Johnson's one, Betty Hutton's one, Doris Day is one of the newer ones that I've started collecting.
yeah. I was just remembering something that because you asked me about repertory theaters up here and that kind of thing, and I'm sure you've heard me talk about this on Facebook. But the other thing is, I'm sorry I'm taking such a left turn here with the topics, but this thought just came back to me that there's an art museum up here that shows movies on Tuesday nights, and I am a member of the committee that selects movies there. So sometimes I get to pick the things that they show, and just talking about referring back to some of the other things that we've been talking about here. That I got them to show Footlight Parade there maybe 10 years ago or something, and that was just an explosion. The audience just went nuts for that, and that really was one of the most satisfying experiences I've had seeing a movie on a big screen.
When you say an explosion, do you mean like a burst of applause at the end of the numbers or laughter or
Just all through it, big laughs at a lot of the jokes, big applause at the musical numbers, big applause at the end, just everything. It just worked all the way through.
oh
It
good.
was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. See, so Footlight Parade I like, obviously. I mean, how could you not? But of the Busby Berkeleys, that's one of my lower favorites because Dick Powell is not in it as much. He was sick and almost got cut out of it. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, he had pneumonia. He did the 42nd Street train tour that they did to promote the film and was out way too long, and he ended up getting pneumonia, and so they almost replaced him with Stanley Smith,
Oh yeah.
and he got well enough that he could be put back into the movies, but it was like a much smaller part than he would have had he been well enough at the beginning.
Oh, I never heard that, but I guess you're the person to know. So yeah. So I saw the presentation on YouTube that you did about the life of Dick Powell, and I wanted to compliment you on that. That was really well done. And what was it about him that interested you so much? Because I know he's a big favorite.
Yeah, so okay, so I discovered old movies sort of in a place where I was thinking about careers, what I wanted to do. And I got into it enough that I felt like, well, maybe this is what I want to do. Maybe I could be like a film preservationist or a historian or a teacher or something like that. But I felt like, okay, if I wrote books, maybe that would be a good option. And with writing, that's something you can do regardless of whatever else you're doing in your life. It's not something that you have to study necessarily or pursue as your primary thing. So um, I was looking around it for topics for potential biography, and when I discovered Dick Powell in 42nd Street first, and then watching the Busby Berkeley movies and really liking him, I was like, why isn't there a book on this guy? I wanted to read about him, and there really wasn't anything out there. So I just started doing research just for my own appeasement. And then I thought, well, this he would make a really great topic for a book. So I started really pursuing that. And it's on the back burner. I mean, it's been on the back burner for a long time. I've been talking about doing it for a long time, but it is something that I work on here and there in my free time. And hopefully one day I'll get to finally do it. But the problem is he died so long ago, and so many of his contemporaries are gone now.
Right.
I did talk to some of them, but and even his children. Like I interviewed his son Norman, and he a lot of the information that he would give me, he would stop himself and say, "Oh, well, that's going to be in my book," because he wrote a
Oh,
memoir that was supposed to be coming out. Well, then he died before it got released, so I'm still waiting for that to be released. So I didn't get some of the answers that I wish I could have gotten because he said, "Well, that's going to be in my book. That's going to be in my book." So we'll see. But he Dick Powell was an amazing, amazing person. He was a workaholic, so this man basically lived like four lives in one. He worked on the stage, and he was a musician. He knew how to play multiple instruments, and then he got into films. So he was, like a musical star. Screen Team with Ruby Keeler, romantic, like youthful lead. And then when he got older, he's like, I have to change gears here. I can't sustain this forever. I'm getting older. So then he became the tough guy noir
yep.
character. But then he was doing radio the entire time because he was smart enough to put it into his contract to let him do radio so that he could supplement his income. And then he said, let's become a director. And he did that for a while. And then he's like, let's become a TV mogul. So he did all of those things in a relatively short life. I mean, he died in 1963, I believe, January 63. So, I mean, incredible.
Yeah, just don't talk to my mother about him, though. She can't stand him, but I
Well,
appreciate. I think she just doesn't. Well, she said she doesn't like Bing Crosby either, so I guess she just doesn't like the crooner types.
does she like him in noir?
Yeah, I showed Murder My Sweet in my class, and she liked him in that. So there you go.
Oh, good. Yeah, see, the thing I love about him in those tough guy parts, and he did on TV, he played a character, Willie Dante, who was a, um, backroom nightclub gambling casino proprietor. He had such a great sense of humor, even through, these like super dark scenarios where there's drugs involved and murder and, violence and stuff, but he always kept a good sense of humor. I love the scene in Murder My Sweet when he's going into the mansion and he does a little hopscotch on the black and white tiles going in. It's great. Just little touches like that.
Yeah. So you mentioned Van Johnson. What about him?
Well, what do you want to know?
Well, what was the first film you saw him in, and what is it you like about him so much?
Um, First film. I don't know. Maybe The Human Comedy.
Oh, I just watched that recently.
How do you like it?
I didn't care for it. I'm not a big MGM fan, and I think for a movie with the word comedy in the title, it's kind of misleading.
It is misleading for sure. I love Mickey Rooney, so it's really a great showcase for him. But overall, I think it doesn't quite gel together as much as I want it to. And Van's got a really small part in it.
Right.
So I don't know. I think the thing that probably made me take notice of him, I had a friend that really loved the movie Miracle in the Rain. And so
I haven't seen it.
oh, it's so good. Okay, so Eileen Heckart is in it, and she was a really famous stage actress, more than a film actress, but she was in films as well. She's from Columbus. She's from Bexley, close by me, so I have a special love for her. And apparently, she hated that movie and was like not embarrassed necessarily of it, but she would not speak highly of it and made fun of the script.
Hmm.
It is a very sentimental movie. And I think on paper it is sort of nuts, but it works so well. It's so well acted. Jane Wyman is the lead. She's like this mousy. Her mother was left by her father and disillusioned. So she's spoken out against men her whole life. So her daughter is lonely, never dated, just sort of, goes to work and takes care of her mother when she gets home, doesn't have much of an identity herself. She's out one day coming home from work and she runs into this boisterous, happy, um, talkative, friendly soldier, and it's Van Johnson. And he just sort of takes her under his wing and he said, "We're going to go have fun." And he takes her shopping and they go to a delicatessen and pick out all the stuff for dinner. And he brings it home. And her mother is completely taken aback by this and warning her against him. But he just wins everybody over. And his character is just so vibrant and um, it's just a great movie. I don't know. That if you want to see a good Van Johnson performance, see that one. I think that's a great one to start with.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out then.
But I love the thing I love about him is he always like makes you feel good to see him. He's always sort of the lighthearted, comedic character. He's dancing and singing, and um, a lot of the stuff that he was in were those MGM movies that maybe you weren't so keen on. But he was in several things with Esther Williams, so they're
Right.
very cool and splashy and full of good music, and they're just like eye candy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also he goes a little later because my interest is mostly up to World War II, so he's a little late for me, I guess. But he was charming and he was talented. I'll give him that.
Yeah, yeah, he's and I mean the war movies. I don't know why. I just love war movies. And he was in a lot of them because he during the making of A Guy Named Joe was in a really bad car accident that put a metal plate in his head.
Mm.
So he couldn't serve. And so the studio really took advantage of that and put him in every war movie that they could because he was the right age and a likable guy. So he played a lot of soldiers.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that about his accident. I didn't know that either.
Oh yeah, he was in bad shape. He almost got decapitated.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad. But you can see, like, if you look, one of his first movies is called Murder in the Big House, and you can see, like, if you look at his face, you can see he doesn't have a scar, but later on, he had a really large scar right across his forehead.
Oh, wow. So I'm learning a lot here today. That's one of the reasons I should talk to you more often. I guess I was just thinking, and I guess I'm talking about myself a little too much here, but I was going to mention that I actually have a friend who worked with Van Johnson, so I'll have to talk to her about that.
Oh, yeah, in what way?
You've probably heard me mention this name on Facebook, but there's an actress named Kelly Maroney who is pretty well known. She does a lot of horror movies, and she's known mostly for that, but she's done other things too. And she was on a soap opera called Ryan's Hope when she was a teenager, and Van Johnson was a guest star on that. So they worked together, and I've heard her talk about how he was very kind to her, and she was like 17 or something, and he really took her under his wing, and they were friends for years, and he taught her a lot about the business. But I haven't heard too much in detail about that, and haven't had the opportunity to really talk to her about that. So if I get to talk to her about that more, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, definitely do. That's good to hear because I've heard varying stories about him and I've seen interviews with him later in life. He did a lot of dinner theater, so he did a lot of PR for that. But he was one of those stars that was very trained to behave a certain way and to embody that star persona and the whole thing. So I think he came off as artificial sometimes. And I think that he could be a little grumpy and gruff with people who didn't live up to the standards that he'd set for himself. So that's good that she had a good experience.
Yeah. And just, my mind is all over the place, but just going back because we were talking about some of the actresses that we like Joan Blondell and Betty Hutton and so on. What about Kate Francis?
She's okay. I
Oh,
never
really? You're not big on her?
know.
Oh, she's a big favorite of mine. So I guess, well, that makes an interesting conversation if we have some difference there, I guess.
I can't. There's not a whole lot of stars I can say I dislike, but I don't know. I've never really latched onto her the same way that I have with some other people.
Oh, okay. I guess we can skip that then. But yeah, I guess it makes it more interesting if we don't all like the same things. But anyway, I was going to ask you. I think you mentioned studying journalism, and I'd like to know more about that. I haven't heard you talk too much about that.
Yeah, well, I when I was trying to figure out what to do career-wise, I thought, well, Leonard Maltin was a journalist. Maybe I'll go that path. That would be a good career to have something where I could do, film reviews and critiques and stuff and write books on the side. And so that's why I chose journalism. I don't know that I chose the right field. There have been times, especially in the past few years with the boys and school and the whole thing, that I felt like, well, maybe I should have been a teacher. Maybe I missed my calling. But I don't know. It's for me, it was never about like this interest was something I could pursue regardless of what I did for money. So I'm not like sad that I didn't become some journalist. There are things about it that would have been great, but there are some things about it that would have been hard.
Yeah, actually, my parents both worked for our local newspaper, so I kind of know that world a little bit, but that's just a side note.
Well, and I
But
studied in an era when all that stuff was dying. You know, magazines were going out of business and newspapers were going out of business. They weren't hiring people. And so out of college, I couldn't find a job. And unless you wanted to work for free for like 5 years as an intern, and then maybe they'll give you a job. It just wasn't a good time for it. So I had to
yeah,
be a journalist in the days of Lee Tracy when they're all like,
right, exactly.
Dad, go find the scoop. And they have those evil looking spikes on their desk that you shove the notes on top of. That's the journalist I wanted.
Exactly. Yeah, I worked at our local paper for a year, and it was nothing like that at all. So I was very disappointed. But just tell me about some of the classes that you took, though. I'd be interested.
At OSU.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I feel like I hated my experience at OSU.
Okay. Well, we don't have to talk about it then. I want to keep it
I mean,
lighthearted.
I had these big lecture hall classes. Nothing was very personalized. Um, I feel like the teachers didn't, the teachers that I had anyway didn't seem all that passionate about it. It was like they were just going through the motions. The most valuable experience I got was actually working on the Lantern, which was a school paper. That was fun. And I did some like music things. I talked about some movies a little bit here and there. Lots of like entertainment in general, like what's going on around campus and what things are available and that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I had one class where it was supposed to be like a media studies. I can't even remember the name of it. But the professor used a textbook that he had written in the 80s about radio. And it was so outdated. Everybody in the class was like, "This is a joke."
Hmm. Well, I'm sorry to hear it wasn't fun, but I wanted to get more background on other things in your life. So if a little bit of negativity creeps in there, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine.
But I guess my point was just to ask what you learned and how that contributed to things you've been doing afterwards.
Well, I mean, I think the most valuable thing that I learned studying journalism versus English is editing, being as um, as to the point as you can be without being too verbose, learning how um, to edit yourself in a way that keeps it entertaining but also gets your point across. I think that's probably the most valuable thing I learned.
Right. Yeah, I've written articles for our paper as well, so I know that discipline of just trying to get the word count and just get it down.
That and
Is
you're supposed to write for an eighth grade reading level, and when you're in a college setting, it feels like they really want you to be more lofty and erudite and to show off so that you're a good example of what comes out of that school. So learning to, especially to appeal to a modern generation, which is um all about fast news and quick entertainment, what's going to grab your attention and the whole thing. So
yeah. Well, just getting back to movies, I was going to ask. You used a phrase in one of the interviews that I liked. You talked about finding your tribe, how we've all kind of found each other. So, how did you find the tribe of people like me and all the people that are out there? How did you go from just watching movies and being interested to discovering that there are other people out there that share that?
yeah, that was an important moment. When I got interested in the movies, it was just me by myself, like going to the or going to the library, getting my stuff, and watching them by myself. Not and nobody in my family really all were that interested in it either. So it was me by myself, And I sort of felt like I was making friends with these stars.
Yeah.
You get being by yourself all the time, but you find the friends in the films. So that was fine for a while. And then I reached out online. There were a couple of message boards. The first one that I found was a Harold Lloyd message board. And I wasn't all that familiar with Harold Lloyd, but there was a branch on there about our gang. So I found some people through there. And then someone had posted that they were creating this thing called goldensilence.com and that there was going to be a message board. So I gravitated to that and I posted on there all the time. And I met a lot of great people on there. And they're actually the ones who encouraged me to go to Cinevent and to go to there was an event out in Cadiz, Ohio at the Clark Gable Museum. They used to do this semi regularly, but they would invite celebrities who were in Gone with the Wind and some people from other things as well. And they would do handprints in these little cement stones and autographs and whatever in the banquet and stuff. So I went out there and I got to meet Ann Rutherford. That was
Oh,
amazing.
wow.
And Cami King. But then Cinevent. So people were saying, this is in your backyard. Why don't you go to this? And I was nervous. I didn't know these people. And I mean, you and I are around the same age. We were taught you don't meet people that you know from the internet in person. It's dangerous and they're going to kidnap you. So I was scared to go there by myself. But
And you were a teenager, right?
I was, when I first found out about it, I was like maybe 17 or 18. And I didn't go until I just turned 20.
Yeah. So what was that first experience like meeting the other people?
It was scary. I remember walking in it at the Ramada where it was at the time. It was in the basement, so you walk down this staircase and it sort of opens up in front of you that there's all these people there, and there were dealer tables there in the hallway, and then there was a huge dealer space. There was a screening room on the other side, and so it was kind of overwhelming, but it was really exciting. I suddenly was in this room and surrounded by all the stuff that I loved, and it was huge, like as far as the eye could see. There were pictures on the walls and autographs for sale and movies and books and everything. So I just sort of like snuck my way into the dealer room trying to be innocuous and just look around and take it all in. And I very quickly made friends with people because when they would talk to me, I think they thought like, "Oh, who are you related to? Like who dragged you here?" But when they realized that I was there because I loved this stuff and that I could talk to them about it, then I was one of them and I was accepted. So it really felt like I was meeting this tribe that I had been missing out on my whole life, and it was amazing. I mean, that's why I wanted to keep the picture show going, because that feeling, it cannot be duplicated. Going online and posting on a message board is great, but you don't have that personal connection to people that you do when you meet them in person and get to talk to them in person.
Absolutely. Yeah. So then what was the progression from going to Cinevent every year to being on the staff?
I would write articles for the Lantern to advertise an event. And so I got to know Steve Haynes, not well, but well enough to that he knew who I was. And he found out that I knew about Dick Powell. So they were screening You Never Can Tell one year. Uh-oh, my phone's gonna die. Um, they were screening that, so they asked me to write the notes for the program book. So it started through that. And then a few years later, it was around when Steve Haynes died. When Steve Haynes died, the hotel closed abruptly because they were having flooding issues. Their pipes burst. And so they had to scramble and find a new hotel. So I offered up to the staff, I said, whatever I can do to help, let me know. And so then they started building on that more and more what I was responsible for. And I at first was just like writing notes for the program book, but then it became eventually I took over the dealer room and scheduling all the tables and sending out all the emails and the communication for that. And then Michael asked me, I think their intention was to get to Cinevent 50 and then end it. But he saw that I might be interested in taking it over, so he asked me if I was interested, and I said, "Well, yeah, I mean if it's feasible, then yeah, I would love to because I want to keep it going." And so then he trained me for the next 2 years on, all the ins and outs and how to keep it running and the whole thing. So that's what happened.
So what did you learn in the training then?
So much stuff. uh a lot of diplomacy. um, a lot of like how to delegate, how many things I should take on myself, what things I could pass on to other people and trust that they could get that part done. And I mean, COVID was in the middle of this transition, so that was so hard. Dealing with, trying to make sure that the attendance was there so that we could actually sustain the show. And we're moving to a new hotel this year, so that should help a lot with that. Um, I mean, you're dealing with an elderly audience, and unfortunately, you lose people. So trying to like recruit new people and learning how to reach out to um, maybe other areas or auxiliary interests that might bring people in. That's been something that I've focused on, trying to, show something that might be related to old time radio or, jazz enthusiasts or, whatever to bring those people in as well so that the show can continue for the future.
Yeah. So what kind of audience does the picture show get? Is it mostly people like us, or are there people coming in who might not have seen a lot of old movies before, or what?
I think that's mostly people who are pretty well versed in movies. And most of them are older. I would say we're on the lower end of the spectrum as far as age goes. But I mean, we do. Last year, it was amazing. There was this guy that reached out to me, and he was in high school, and he was so excited that we existed, and he offered to put flyers out around town. So he helped me with that as well. But he's not even 18, or it wasn't last year.
Hmm.
So that was very exciting because you don't get those very often.
Yeah, I would hope there would be some new people coming in. It's like Lou Sabini has said to me that, people like you and me are the future.
Yes, but there aren't enough of us.
Unfortunately, no.
Well, and the thing is, I always think about it. The Turner Classic Movies Film Festival is huge, and there are a lot of younger people that attend that. I'm amazed that they can attend it because it's so expensive. So, with our show, we really try to make it affordable for people because we want them to spend their money in the dealer room with on the memorabilia and stuff. Um, we just want to, make enough to keep us going. So, we try to make it affordable for people. We try to make it appealing to lots of different types of people, and we also really try to include people. So if you've attended the show and you have an idea and you let me know about it, and I think it's a good idea, we're going to take it. We really do try to include everybody.
So what are some suggestions you've gotten from people that you've used?
Well, last year I was surprised some people were suggesting that we show maybe foreign films or like historical kinds of things. So we have something on deck for that. I can't confirm it yet, but we're working on it. Um, and then I also had some people approach me this year. They said, you always show Laurel and Hardy, but what about W.C. Fields? He's one of those people that is well loved among the people that know him, but he's sort of fading away in the collective memory.
Yes.
We decided to do a W.C. Fields tribute. We're going to do um, Million Dollar Legs and The Old Fashioned Way as a double feature,
Great.
and showing it's the old Army game, the silent film, and then we're going to show the short Fatal Glass of Beer.
Yeah. That sounds good. I wish I could be there, but as you know, I'll be showing Million Dollar Legs up here, so at least there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where like I said, we want to include everybody. We try to show things that are obscure, so that's not necessarily obscure titles, but they're really fun ones. And the thing that I've learned, the people that attend our show really are passionate about film and seeing things on film. They don't want to see digital. So even though we can get rarities potentially from an archive, they're all digital now. All the restorations are digital. And people really don't want to see that at our show. So we really focus on the films. Of course, we try to get the rare stuff if we can, if we have access to it, but I've learned that people seem to not really necessarily care about the subject as long as it's a good one and it's on film.
Right. So what's the process for scheduling the show? How do you figure out which films you can show?
Um, can I pause you for 1 second? I need to plug my phone in.
Okay.
Um, the way that we schedule things is we have film lists from people who are film collectors, and we just keep those on file. So if they get something new, they can submit that to us and let us know. So sometimes we take suggestions just because they have something new and something exciting, that we haven't had access to before. But we also just keep those on file. So I try to plan as far ahead as I can. If I see something that I think would be cool, but we don't have room in the schedule for this year, I'll put it on tap for next. Um, Next year we actually have almost a full schedule potentially because there's this thing in Ohio that they're doing. It's called America 250. It's for the 250th anniversary of the United States. And Ohio is doing a focus on movies. So we're hoping that we can get some additional like publicity through them by affiliating ourselves with that. So we're going to try to show a lot of stuff that has like actors from Ohio, directors from Ohio, writers from Ohio. Um, but that's the most fun part of planning the thing for me is scheduling the films and try and get a lot of variety. We try to do so we do a serial every year. We do two silent film programs per day, so it's 4 days long. We do we try to do westerns, we try to do animation, we try to do shorts, we do comedies, we do horror movies. Um, Foreign films aren't a standard part of the program, but we have shown those in the past. Usually things from England because, subtitles can be a little tricky,
Right.
especially with film prints. Um, but we've shown German silence with German titles, and then we had someone translate them vocally.
Oh, I see.
So, but we try to show a variety. But our focus is rarities. Our focus is the things that you don't see on TCM, the things you can't get on DVD, but that still maybe have stars and stuff that people would recognize and want to see.
Right. So what's the process then for contacting the studios and getting the prints? I always wondered about that.
We don't do that. We are 100% sourced from private sources.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yep. We borrowed from BYU last year, so I'll take that back. We're not 100%, but I would say this year we are 100% privately sourced.
Well, that's interesting because I know Capital Fest contacts the archives and the studios and things like that. So I just assumed that that's how all festivals do it, but that's interesting.
No, Cinevent started out as just like film collectors getting together, and they didn't have a schedule. They would just come and, okay, we've got this print. Who votes to watch this? And then they would throw it on. So it was very informal from the very beginning. Cinevent ran in the late 60s was when it started. So it's been going on for a long time.
Yeah. Well, so I'm learning a lot here today. So I think we should wrap it up soon. But you mentioned the W.C. Fields tribute. What else is coming up this year at the picture show?
So we have, let's see. So the silent movies I'm excited about. We're showing The Little American with Mary Pickford. It's a Cecil B. DeMille directed film. And we're going to have author Scott Eyman come and introduce it because he's written books on both DeMille and Pickford. Um, we will be showing a movie called Mrs. Wiggs of the Cabbage Patch, which there's a W.C. Fields version of that, but this is the silent version from 1919, and it stars Marguerite Clark. Marguerite Clark was a huge silent movie actress, big star from Cincinnati, and she was a rival to Mary Pickford, but almost all of her films have disintegrated. They don't exist anymore. So this is one of the few that's still around.
It's funny. My dad actually gave me an autographed picture of her for Christmas a couple years ago.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I got one at Capital Fest last year,
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So what else? What are the other highlights this year?
Um,
This is your time to plug.
I was gonna say, I'm trying to think of what we can confirm and what we cannot confirm yet. Oh, we're gonna show an Burt I. Gordon schlocky movie about giant crickets called Beginning of the End. So that should be fun. That's gonna be one of the late night slots. So it'll be one of those ones where the audience can get boisterous and goofy and enjoy the show. Um, let's see here. I'm trying to think because I'm planning for next year as well, so I'm like picturing that schedule in my head.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm working on my 2026 classes right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we're showing a couple of very early musicals. One is called Street Girl with Betty Compson, and we're showing Close Harmony, which is a Buddy Rogers early sound musical, and so those should be good. That's got Nancy Carroll.
And I believe Kay Francis is in that, but you said you didn't like her, so you're gonna have to junk that one.
We have shown Kay Francis in the past too. We showed Let's Go Native a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we try, like I said, we try to hit a lot of different points. We basically run anything from the silent era all the way up into um like the 60s. That's sort of our cutoff.
Am I right in thinking Kay Francis is in Close Harmony? I may be remembering wrong.
You could be right, but honestly, I can't remember now.
I know she's in one of the Nancy Carroll Buddy Rogers movies, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Well, anything else as far as
Well,
promotion?
one of the big things about the picture show that people, I think, that draws people in is the dealer room. It's not just about the films. It's so much is about the dealers and, the cool stuff that you can see in this. It's like museum quality stuff. I mean, people bring linen backed posters and hang them on the walls and they'll be for sale. We had you get stuff from all eras. So I remember eyeing this Goonies poster that was on the wall a couple of years ago, and it was over my price range. But there's all kinds of stuff in there. You can get films, you can get autographs, you can get books and movies. And I got these little Beanie Baby monsters, like it was a Dracula and a Hunchback from Notre Dame for the boys, and you can get all kinds of stuff in there. It's really really
Yeah.
fun.
I should just correct myself that Kay Francis was in a movie called Illusion with Nancy Carroll and Buddy Rogers. And she's not in Close Harmony, so I retract that.
Okay.
That's unfortunately that's the problem of having too much information in your head. It overwhelms you sometimes.
It really does. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think we should wrap it up. But it's been really fun, Samantha. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been fun talking with you, as always.
As always, my friend. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'll see you at Capitol Fest.
Yes, well, we can always talk on Facebook before that. So
Oh,
I'll be around.
yeah.
Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome.